The Three Martini Lunch is brought to you in part today by BioOptimizers, makers of Magnesium Breakthrough. And right now, BioOptimizers is offering you a 14-day sleep challenge for free. Get a 14-day supply of Magnesium Breakthrough for just the cost of shipping at magbreakthrough.com/martini-free. Magnesium Breakthrough contains all 7 forms of magnesium designed to help calm your mind and help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. It also helps to improve digestion, supports muscle recovery, and supports healthy bone density. To get your free 14-day supply of Magnesium Breakthrough, visit magbreakthrough.com/martini-free. This offer is only available at magbreakthrough.com/martini-free. That's martini-free, all one word. Overcome the struggle and get the most relaxing sleep ever with Magnesium Breakthrough. Just pay shipping. Go to magbreakthrough.com/martini-free. magbreakthrough.com/martini-free.
Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. 3 Martinis coming up.
Hey, really glad you're with us for the Friday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. We've made it to the end of the week again, and it's been a pretty crazy week, as evidenced by our 3 crazy martinis on Thursday. Today, we're back to our usual format, good, bad, and crazy martini. And Jim, for the second time this week, at least, we get our good martini from the state of New York. Hat tip to Free Beacon for flagging this one. A New York City law that would have let non-citizens vote in local elections was struck down as unconstitutional by a New York appeals court. According to the 3-1 majority ruling written by appellate judge Paul Wooten, we determined that this local law was enacted in violation of the New York State Constitution and municipal home rule law, and thus must be declared null and void. So what happened here is that in 2021, the New York City Council and Mayor Eric Adams the following year, 2022, signed legislation that would have allowed about 800,000 non-citizens in the city to vote in local elections. That includes green card holders and others with federal work authorization. That same year, a lower New York court sided with the Republican plaintiffs in striking down the law, but the Adams administration appealed to the appellate court, obviously, and they lose again. Apparently, Jim, democracy hinges on this ruling, because when you look at the reaction on both sides here, you've got Assemblyman Michael Tannousis on the Republican side saying, during a time where nearly 200,000 migrants have flooded our city and streets, disrupting the public and attacking our police officers, my colleagues and I have worked tirelessly to protect our voting laws, which were created for citizens of the United States. Democracy always wins, and I am proud to say it was delivered yet again today. But that's not how Murad Awada, executive director of the New York Immigration Coalition, sees it. He calls it another shameful attempt by xenophobic Republicans who would disenfranchise residents rather than promote a more inclusive and participatory democracy. He says that immigrant New Yorkers deserve a say in how their local government functions and spends their tax money. So, Jim, you and I obviously side on the side of only citizens should vote. That's one of the great benefits of being a citizen of this country. And so to see the left lose again on this, especially when their city is now teeming with people there who are not citizens, and many of them now illegally, what do you make of the New York Appellate Court once again coming down on the rational side?
This is good news and a good martini, but there's a bit of a bitter aftertaste, in part because I think this was a no-brainer of a decision. Self-evident, obvious, as clear-cut as it gets, and it was only a 3-1 decision. What's more, Washington, D.C., not too far from where you and I are talking right now, in 2023, they put into effect a law allowing illegal immigrants and foreigners to vote in city elections. As Alana Goodman, also of the Free Beacon, pointed out, under this law, Russian and Chinese diplomats can vote in local elections. Is that what we wanted to do here? Seems pretty straightforward. No, you shouldn't do that. And over in San Francisco, similar law, Court of Appeals in San Francisco. By the way, this is I'm reading this from edsource.org, and it seems like a good example of how the use of euphemisms makes communication increasingly impossible. Quote, a court of appeals in San Francisco decided in favor of immigrant parents' rights to vote in the city's school board elections. Well, no one's ever objected to immigrants voting in these things. Oh, you mean non-citizen immigrants? Oh, well, that's different now, isn't it? right? I know a whole bunch of people who are immigrants, became U.S. citizens and vote in elections. Nobody has any problem with that. Oh, you didn't really mean those people. Well, then you really shouldn't use the term immigrant parents, right? Because you're not talking about all immigrant parents. You're talking about illegal immigrant parents. I suppose also you'd put in the category of people who are not permanent residents or green card holders, those with work visas, people who are there but who don't have full citizenship. You have to be a full U.S. citizen to vote in elections. I think this is going to have to go to the Supreme Court because we've seen these three cities do it. I suspect you will see other pro-illegal immigration groups in these cities attempt to do the same thing. And once you go down this road, each city would then have to maintain two separate voter rolls, right? You'd have to have one for your federal and state and other elections in which only U.S. citizens can vote. And then you need voter rolls in which illegal immigrants and anybody can vote, including diplomats of other countries. Greg, what are the odds that at some point those two voter rolls would end up getting mixed up? It seems not inconceivable that at some point you'd be like, oh, we mixed them up, and as a result, some illegal immigrants voted in the presidential election. But don't worry, it was totally an accident. It'll never happen again, right? It's too much there's too much risk, too much downside, too much watering down the benefits of citizenship for something that they're arguing is an injustice. But I would point out, Greg, I lived in Turkey for 2 years. I did not vote in Turkish elections. I was not eligible to vote. There is no other country where you can just show up in violation of that country's laws and then expect to vote in their elections. So if it's not absurd in any other country on earth, why is it absurd and wrong that illegal immigrants cannot vote in U.S. elections, local, state, or federal? Absolutely ridiculous, and this needs to be swatted down every single time. I think is going to take a Supreme Court decision. And I'd like to see it to be 9-0. I don't know how we'll ever vote, but the fact that this one was 3-1 indicates we would probably not get a unanimous decision at the U.S. Supreme Court either.
Yeah, it's just incredible. I love this guy's quote that it would disenfranchise residents.
You can't disenfranchise somebody who's not franchised in the first place.
Exactly. Exactly right. Now you're going to have people arguing, well, the people they have in mind are the people that are here legally. They're just not citizens yet. But the bottom line is very simple. You have to be a citizen to vote. End of story. All right, let's talk about 4Patriots and the great deals you can find at 4patriots.com/martini. Remember, you can get a free solar panel with the purchase of the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. And as always, get free shipping on orders more than $97. The best part about 4Patriots is just the fact that you're always prepared, whether it's the food, whether it's the generator, whether it's other products that are just fantastic there. And so, as we've mentioned before, the new solar generator worth its weight in gold because it has double the capacity and it's expandable so you can run the big appliances like your fridge even longer. Comes with 12 outlets, including 4 AC plus 2 USB-C outlets to charge your phone much faster than you would with other plugs. And then in the end, you also have great deals on things like Heartland's Finest Powdered Milk Kit, Scrambled Egg Kit, Plant-Based Protein Survival Food Kit, and Butter Powder. Visit 4patriots.com/martini to get your Patriot Power Generator 2000X with the free solar panel included. Plus, get free shipping on orders over $97. Save more and get peace of mind now by going to the number 4patriots.com/martini. That's 4patriots.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our bad martini now. And this is a developing story, so we'll see where it goes here in the next hours, days, and weeks. Who knows? But Catherine Herridge has been a fixture of Washington reporting for a long time, spent many years at the Fox News Channel, great investigative reporter. A number of years ago, not even sure how many now, she headed over to CBS, where she was also doing excellent work. Last week, there was kind of a bloodletting at the CBS Washington Bureau. A lot of different people there were laid off. She was one of them. But now there's much more to the story. Jonathan Turley, the well-known law professor, actually writing an opinion column about this over at The Hill that really got this story percolating yesterday. He says there's trouble brewing at BlackRock, the headquarters of CBS, after the firing of Catherine Herridge. Many of us were shocked after Herridge was included in the layoffs this month, but those concerns have increased after CBS officials took the unusual step of seizing her files, computers, and records, including information on privileged sources. He says the position of CBS has alarmed many, including the union. And yes, the union has spoken out now, and that's SAG-AFTRA, actually. So it's not just Hollywood. They deal with the media as well. And part of their statement says that CBS's actions to seize all this material sets a dangerous precedent for all media professionals and threatens the very foundation of the First Amendment. Their statement goes on to say it's completely inappropriate for an employer to lay off a reporter and take the very unusual step of retaining and searching the reporter's files, inclusive of confidential source identification and information. From a First Amendment standpoint, a media corporation with a commitment to journalism calling a reporter's research and confidential source reporting proprietary information is both shocking and absurd. And so those who are aware of Catherine's reporting know that she probably deals with some sensitive information and some sources who she needs to protect quite a bit here. So this is troubling beyond perhaps a reporter with another type of beat. Jim, from someone who's been in this arena for a long time, I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. Folks from Brit Hume to other sources at CBS say they've never heard anything like this before.
Yeah, and we should point out Catherine Herridge has done a lot of reporting on Hunter Biden and had a bunch of scoops in that area. Look, I can imagine a scenario where CBS News might want to retain a copy of her notes. One, for whoever takes over her beat to be able to continue to report on those stories. On the one hand, I feel like it's professional courtesy that if Herridge is in the middle of some big investigative piece and you lay her off, that she's allowed to take that big investigative piece over to wherever she gets hired next. But I could see CBS saying, well, wait a second, these people spoke to a CBS News reporter. We want to keep these notes here. The other thing I can think of is whether there's a pending lawsuit, pending subpoena, pending something where CBS News could be on the hook if somebody says, hey, I want your records and correspondence on, issue X. Do not destroy them. They must be preserved. We're in the discovery process. In which, CBS News could be on the hook for destroying or not keeping those notes. But that having been said, that would be an argument for having a copy of everything Catherine Herridge has, not for seizing it and not allowing her to have it. And that seems very, it doesn't feel like that's what's the case here and what's going on here. And again, SAG-AFTRA, this is not some right-wing Trumpy outfit. This is, the union associated with many people in the entertainment industry, but also working for those who are in television news. I get why there's no understandable justification for this. Violates the First Amendment. Very ominous sign. And look, out of all the reporters to do it, this thing isn't happening to anybody on The View. This isn't happening to anybody else on other publications. So, does this mean? Can we be certain that this is because Catherine Herridge was reporting on something that somebody at CBS News didn't like, or somebody at the Biden administration didn't like? We don't know that, but it's very hard to begrudge somebody for having those suspicions. More answers are needed, but this really sounds highly unusual, and I don't begrudge anybody for having their antenna twitch on what's going on here.
Yeah, good for SAG. I mean, we're not generally attaboy on unions, particularly teachers' unions. But in this particular case, I think they're absolutely right to step in. And whatever dues Catherine Herridge is paying is paying off right now. So I don't know if we'll hear more from SAG. I'm glad it was a written statement since their president is Fran Drescher. And so I wouldn't want to hear her laugh as she tries to explain all this stuff.
Look, if we want these guys to knuckle under and give answers, some heavy questioning from Fran Drescher would get these guys to say, okay, all right, we give up. We'll tell you what's going on.
All right, let's talk about Fast Growing Trees. Did you know that Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with more than 10,000 different kinds of plants and more than 2 million happy customers in the U.S., and the Corumbuses are among those 2 million. You can grow lemon, avocado, olive, or fig trees inside your home on top of the wide variety of houseplants they have available.
Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to order online, and your plants are shipped directly to your door in just 1 or 2 days. And along with their 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee, they offer free plant consultation forever until the earth crashes into the sun. That's how long that guarantee is.
We love all of our plants from Fast Growing Trees. Our Monstera really is a monster there in the front of the living room, but it looks fantastic. The fig and the lemon tree is doing great also, and we could not be happier. Right now, Fast Growing Trees has the best deals online, up to half off on select plants. Plus, when you use code Martini at checkout, you save an additional 15%. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com. Be sure to use the code Martini at checkout for an additional 15% off. fastgrowingtrees.com. Code MARTINI. Offer is valid for a limited time, but tell them we sent you. All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now. And for that, we head over to MSNBC, which I don't believe you nor I spend a tremendous amount of time watching, and for obvious reasons. But every once in a while, you find some things online that just make you bang your head against the desk. A regular contributor over there now is former Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill, who was defeated by Josh Hawley in 2018. She was on with Joe and Mika recently, and she started off her comment by talking about how whenever she travels, people she talked to, the only thing they want to know is, you're not really going to bring Donald Trump back, are you? And so I've come to the conclusion that people, quote unquote, that you meet overseas are just behind small children and Uber drivers that validate everything that you want to say politically and publicly about anything in our culture. But she was then calling out Donald Trump as a liar, and then went nuclear on the New York Times for daring to fact check the sitting president of the United States. Here's what she said.
And can I make a suggestion? I move that every newspaper in America quits doing any fact checks on Joe Biden until they fact check Donald Trump every morning on the front page. It is ridiculous that the New York Times fact checked Joe Biden on something. I mean, he vomits lies. Trump vomits lies. And every day, over and over and over again. And it's just ridiculous that the New York Times is doing a fact check on Biden while they let Trump, while they're numb to the torrent of lies coming out of Trump's mouth.
I got a good idea. How about we fact check both of them, since one is the sitting president, one of them's the presumptive Republican presidential nominee. Would that be too hard? But Claire McCaskill trying to play favorites here is fun. I don't know if you heard it, Jim, in the clip, but after she said that Trump vomits lies, Mika says, yeah, literally. These people just don't know what that word means.
Literally, Greg, literally. If Trump is literally vomiting lies, he should see a doctor. So, one, does Claire McCaskill operate under the belief that the New York Times is too generous to Trump in its coverage?
Right.
That it does not fact check. I mean, clearly it does not fact check enough, Trump enough to her liking. And she says she wants this above the fold front page. Has she looked at the front page of the New York Times? Does she do that, and does she say, wow, what generous coverage Trump has gotten today? Like for some of these people that, like, I'm really kind of just befuddled and beside myself with this idea that they believe that, one, that the reason Trump is, ahead of Biden in a lot of the polling, not as much as maybe we saw earlier, but he's still up pretty high, is because the New York Times coverage is too generous. And if they put we've fact checked, I know it's going to shock you, America, but Donald Trump said something that's not true. I know that's so out of your realm of belief. That if they did that every day in the morning, then like Biden would be way ahead. That it would, that this Biden's not doing anything wrong. It's just that the New York Times is covering him too harshly, and that Trump is being covered too generously. I saw that, and then I was reminded of a recent tweet by Nate Silver, who we used to kind of make fun of back in his 538 days. And he just now, like, there's this entire genre on Twitter. Like, Nate Silver will say something really obvious, and hard left progressives will just dunk on it and treat Nate Silver as if he's the dumbest guy ever for saying something that's self-evident. And so Nate Silver recently said, quote, "It is a bad sign for our democracy how many people think the New York Times objective should be to help Democrats win rather than to do good journalism. That's not usually stated as explicitly as, in this case, it was Joyce Carol Oates, who said, do the New York Times editors really want a Republican victory in November? Frankly, this is hard to fathom." She's really upset about a New York Times article. And it's kind of like, hey, don't you know that if you have that headline on it, Republicans might win? Which, again, I don't think the headlines on the New York Times actually influence who wins the presidential election. It's a very big deal. We're going to have probably 150 million Americans, 160, maybe even 170 million vote. You think, the circulation of the New York Times is not that high. So Nate Silver says, this is the not very subtle implication of a lot of progressive media criticism. And I think that actually is at heart of, we talk about media bias on this podcast a lot. People can say, oh, we're tired of it, except we keep seeing new examples every day. And there are people who believe the purpose of the media is to elect Democrats. Why are you not helping today? Why did you report on this thing that is bad news for Biden? Don't you realize you're only supposed to report on good news for Biden and bad news for Trump? And you see something of a similar dynamic in the world of conservative media. Never mind the Trump days. Back during 2004, I remember somebody wrote in, I had written something. It was basically either Bush or Cheney. I don't know, one of the debates hadn't gone. There was something where I wrote something. I was like, that did not work very well for the Bush campaign. And somebody wrote in and said that I owed it to President Bush to only report good news for the remainder of the campaign. And that's not the way this works, folks. That's not the way I've seen my job. It's not the way my editors see my job. I don't think it's the way Greg sees his job. We tell you what's going on. That's why we give you a good martini, a bad martini, and a crazy martini. Some days the news is going to be good. It's going to line up the way it wants for the candidates you prefer. Some days it's going to be bad. Some days it's just going to be crazy. Some days it's going to be hard to tell how it is. But that doesn't change our job to tell you what's going on. And you decide whether you think it's good news for your candidates or not. But we're not the RNC, and the New York Times is not the DNC, and their job is not to say, we got, as the guest host X John points out, or is it Iowa Hawk who says that the purpose of journalism is to cover stories with a pillow until they stop breathing? I think I've seen both of them say it. But this is a complete misconstruing. And it's very weird to see Claire McCaskill, a former U.S. senator who didn't seem crazy. There are three sources you can really trust in this country. Questions your kids asked about the political scene that seem suspiciously sophisticated. What Tom Friedman's cab driver told him that. And what foreigners in airports are telling Claire McCaskill when she's vacationing. Those are the three people who have their finger on the pulse. But she does this, and nobody at Morning Joe is like, actually, that's not really the job of the New York Times. As far as we could tell, everybody around that table is like, yeah, really, they should just declare we're not fact-checking Biden anymore.
Seriously. Yeah. And you wrote on your Jolt today on this Axios story about Biden relying on note cards at fundraisers and other public events where he not only knows who he's calling on, but what the question's going to be ahead of time, which we've seen exposed before. And so the first comment on Mike Allen of Axios retweeting this story is, "Democracy is at stake. Thank you for amplifying this nonsense. How pathetic of you." So basically, any skosh of criticism against Joe Biden is going to be, democracy is hinging in the balance. What are you doing? So get ready for that for the next several months.
Jonah Goldberg likes to write about this where, the progressive attitude of a war on blank, right? If democracy is at stake, then you, the journalist, are obligated to avert your eyes from anything bad news for Joe Biden. Your duty is to suppress that news. Your duty is to deny that news. Your duty is to run interference for Joe Biden. Don't let America know that he's using note cards at fundraisers. And I try to lay out in today's Morning Jolt, it's not the most surprising thing in the world. What makes it a little more significant is the fact that you may have noticed we don't get a lot of other encounters with Joe Biden. He doesn't do sit-down interviews anymore. He doesn't do a lot of formal press conferences anymore. We saw the one he did in prime time where he got everything wrong while insisting his memory was fine. He does these press gaggles where he'll take one or two questions as he's walking to Marine One helicopter. But, that's the old Reagan trick where if you don't like the question, you just pretend you can't hear it, and then you walk to the helicopter. And when he goes to give a speech, he's mostly just reading off the teleprompter. So, that's why the Her report dropped like a bomb, because it was like, wow, behind closed doors, he really does seem that out of it as he sometimes does when that. And I go through we get transcripts of these fundraisers, and I went through the last few. He did a swing through California. Probably the one that just kind of jumped out at me the most was that Biden is talking about the economy, and he says, right now there are 1,000 billionaires in America. It was 780 before the recession. The recession. It was a recession, but before we got in the problem of again, I'm reading a transcript, folks. This is my best sense of audience member suggests the pandemic. Yeah, dealing with the pandemic. And now there's 1,000 of them. Now, look, we all forget words. Greg is kind enough to edit out the portions of this podcast where I'm like, Greg, who was that guy? And he was the senator, and all that kind of stuff. So it can happen to anybody. But Biden not being able to remember the word pandemic is a little weird. The fact that we don't get to see Biden very much, and the fact that there's report of this is what he's doing behind closed doors in what, again, as I try to emphasize, this is the friendliest media. Like you're donating to people who you're talking to people who have donated the legal maximum to your campaign at a billionaire's house. Audiences don't get more friendly than that. They don't get more sympathetic than that. This is like the easiest speaking gig possible. Again, this sounds like a guy who's 81 years old, going to be 82 shortly after the election, who's in rough shape, and he's not going to get any younger. Hey, good luck, America. It's Friday.
Jim, we made it. Have a good weekend. See you Monday.
See you Monday, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Do subscribe to the 3 Martini Lunch if you don't already. Please tell your friends as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a terrific weekend, and please join us on Monday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.